Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Viva Cafe con Leche. It is Tuesday, October 18th. Hope you all had a beautiful weekend. I am the badass Buddha Lori Monaco coming to you from a chilly but lovely southern Connecticut. A little gloomy today, but I think it's supposed to burn off. Who knows? We've been having a little bit of rain, and then it'll get nice and whatever, but we had an absolutely fabulous weekend for weather here. I mean, it was like the perfect New England fall weather, so it was incredible. So good morning, everyone, and welcome.
Buenos dias, good morning. Well, here, when I set my alarm for 7, it was still dark out.
Yes.
So I hit snooze. It was just like, why am I getting up in the middle of the night?
That's going to change, right? Doesn't that change? When does that change? In November, though. I think it changes in November.
What, to get light again?
They do the time change, so it's a little bit lighter in the morning, and then it gets dark early.
Yeah, so, but it was good. The weather's okay. Today's high 81, so.
That's nice. Is
Mhm.
it still humid though? When does the humidity calms down? I know it does because I lived in Florida for a year. But when does it calm down like officially? Is it still humid? Has it been humid
Yes.
or tolerable?
It's been humid, but it can become tolerable. Like, there's some cool, breezy nights.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
That's really nice. It's the worst is when it's hot and humid in a place and the breeze is hot and humid. Like it makes no difference.
Like every other day in Florida. So,
Yeah.
Jenny Brian, good morning. I was thinking about you and your mom. I hope you both are well. I'm doing this training, and yesterday it was all about a certain type of thing when you're a caregiver. And I was like, I didn't even get this training, and I aced it. I did everything. So I hope everything's well with you and your mom. Milagros, buenos dias.
And good morning, Stephanie Nieves in the house. Good morning. Don't forget to make sure that you say good morning to us in the comments. We love to have you jump in there. I see Stephanie. I always see the blank. So she's beautiful. Look at what she put. That's nice. We love the emojis. Are always lovely. Absolutely.
Always.
And don't forget to like, share, follow, subscribe, do all those lovely things. We still really want to build up the Viva YouTube page, but it's we did really well, and then it sort of pittered out. So if you could still push that, that would be absolutely fabulous, because we would love to have even more followers and subscribers, just to get the word out there. It's not like we've monetized anything. We don't make money off of it. If we could, that would be great, but we don't. But we still would love to see more subscribers. So if you know anyone that would be happy to subscribe to our YouTube channel, we would appreciate that. Thank you so
Well,
much.
I think that the entrees that we serve are phenomenal. Like our guest today is going to give a lot of statistics, a lot of facts on something that happens every day in our lives, but because it is what it is, we either pretend it's not happening, we hide it behind curtains and closed doors, or we sweep it under the rug. So I think, like, for people to subscribe, it's not because we want numbers per se, because you know what? Everything in life is a give and take. But your takeaway is always, like, surprisingly 3-4 times payback, because your takeaway is something that you can then infuse in your morning coffee, in your evening drink. It is something that you can always have and then share when you're faced with people, because there's people don't meet by coincidence. People meet because they're supposed to meet, because either you're the messenger or you're there to receive a message. And if we were to look at life like that, we would not look at people like, oh, I don't like that, or look at that. We would approach them with such discernment, because either they got something to tell me or I have something to tell them. And that's how love spreads. And that's how we become the change we want to see in the world. So it's never about coincidence. It's never a mistake. It's never wrong place, wrong time. It's what are you going to look at your situation, listen to anybody's podcast and say, what can I take away from here? That then later on, when I'm at work and in the break room and the lady's going through something, I'm going to be like, oh, listen, I heard this. And this podcast, they were talking about that, and they had some tools. That's what life is about.
Yes. Yep.
So you afforded yourself the time to listen to a podcast. So that's your give and take, and then you're going to share that with somebody later on that you might be saving a life. You might be protecting children that you are even unaware that they exist. You sharing something positive that can be helpful to somebody is changing a life.
Perfecto. Love it.
Liza Duck, haven't seen you in forever.
I'm like fooling around with Facebook because I'm trying to share. I'm trying to do what we
background. Did you see our red background?
No. Are we red right now?
This is on Facebook.
Maybe they don't like us. Hold on.
So yeah, so everybody, has IGs, Facebooks, YouTube. What's the harm in saying?
We're red because we're live. Is that what that means? That's what that means, I think.
No, I was never, but it's okay. It's fine. So busy with my college kid. There you go. But again, look what she's doing, but she's still doing. And here she is. Thank you for coming on today, Liza.
Yes, we're happy to see you, Liza. We haven't seen you in a while. We've missed you. We hope that Christopher's doing well in school, and right, he's going to Fordham, and that's a pretty. Yeah, that's. I
love Fordham. I love Fordham University from the outside, as far as I've ever gotten, Liza. But it's beautiful.
Well, that's because it's like a fortress over there. I think it's like, right, doesn't it have really high like gates and stuff?
But it's right on Fordham Road where we used to go shopping, so you would see it all the time. And yeah, so okay, so let's do our intentions. What's today? Because we both have a 9 o'clock sharp cutoff, right?
Yes, we do. All right. Look at that. We got a find love on the best dating site on YouTube. That's nice. Okay, then. All right. So here we go. All right. So let's do our, let's set our intention. Let's do our mantra, and let's start talking. We'll bring our guest on, Lillian, and we'll start talking about domestic violence. Today starts our conversation. And for the rest of the month, we're going to be focusing on domestic violence. So let's set our intention. As always on Viva Cafe con Leche, the intention is to be intentional and
grateful.
Wonderful. So set your intention for whatever it is today. You could set it now. You can change it throughout the day, whatever you need to do. But when you set that intention, go with
gratitude.
Yep. Absolutely flips it. Right. So, okay, let's do our mantra, and then let's get busy. All right, here we go. Say it loud, say it proud. I am a disruptor.
I am a disruptor.
I am unapologetically courageous.
I am unapologetically courageous.
I am spiritually grounded.
I am spiritually grounded.
I am magically orgasmic.
Ole.
And I am beyond authentic.
And I keep it real, mi gente. And Desiree, is that the bad girl reading spot in the back? That is so funny. That's what it looks like, right? That's and it's so funny because I live alone, but that's like just me pretending I'm in like the largest library in the world. And that's my getaway. That's my little what is that? My travel capsule. Thank you for noticing.
That sounds fun. I'm trying to catch up because for some odd reason it was very sluggish and it wasn't allowing me to post stuff. So we always do love to say good morning to our lovely people that come on. So thanks for that. My intention, my intention to be mindful of my words, but that wouldn't be you.
It's Eliza. I get it because to bite your tongue and to say it's not my business. That's how I've been even if it's with my kids, I spent the weekend at my daughter's this weekend. Praise God. God is good. Again, another miracle happened. But, it's nice. Even then, you're like, mind your business, mind your business. And I can tell myself that, mind your business. And because all my life having no filter, but then it reaches a point where that filter was just, it was like a boomerang back. It was like exhausting me. So now it's like I say, listen, blah, blah, blah. They don't want to take it. That's it. I'm done. Or you give them that evil side look, like, yeah, we're gonna touch base with this later when I'm a little calmer, type of thing. But yeah, it's choices. And it always goes back, right? Before we get into it, everything we do in life is a choice. We can have a decision and we ask 50 people, and guess what we're going to do after we speak to all 50 people? What we're going to do? We're going to do the same thing we thought we wanted to do before we spoke to 50 people in our community.
Yes. Yes.
So
Yep.
it's always about choices. So there's consequences to our choices, whether they're good or they're bad. There's consequences to every single thing we do say or how we live. So live it well, live it out loud, and live it to where you are living your best life without harming anybody around you. And you can do it. It can be done. Grow with the women entrepreneurs. That find your tribe. Find your tribe in anything you want to do. Exercise, yoga, entrepreneurship, climbing the ladder in corporate. There's a tribe for everything. And then there's family, and then there's friends.
Yep.
That's where we mess it up, because we don't separate. Find your tribe.
Here we go. All right. So our tribe is absolutely fantastic. We really appreciate all of you. We love how you've been very loyal. And for those that don't get a chance to come on all the time, we always know you come back, which is just fantastic. So this is a really important conversation that we're going to have over the next four shows, talking about domestic violence. It is on the rise. 2020 really set some horrible statistics into play because people were home with their abusers, and the added stress of it. Some families who maybe they were borderline, that they weren't quite there, but it tipped them over to the edge because they were so stressed out. So we have our special guest Lillian's going to come on. We're also going to talk about her event as well. We'll probably get that one out first, and then continue on from there. But I just want to read, I printed out some statistics stuff too, but I'm going to let Lillian do the statistic stuff. But I appreciate the definition now of what is domestic violence. And it's from the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence. And it says, it is the willful intimidation, physical assault, battery, sexual assault, and or other abusive behavior as part of a systematic pattern of power and control perpetrated by one intimate partner against another. It includes physical violence, sexual violence, threats, economic and emotional and psychological abuse. And I'm very glad they added those. The frequency and severity of domestic violence varies dramatically. And if you ever want to understand the statistics, go to NCADV, that's National Coalition Against Domestic Violence. They have national statistics, but they also have state by state statistics. And that's important too, because you get an idea of where you see it more, or at least what's reported more, probably is really the better choice, because for every statistic that they show, it's probably even a little bit under than the actual statistic, because there's so many people that don't report still to this day. They're either afraid. And what we've also seen is it's rising among men being abused, because and they really don't tend to report it because it's embarrassing, or if they do, it gets poo-pooed by law enforcement because it's like, dude, and I don't know if they also include statistics based on the LGBTQ plus community, because apparently that domestic violence is very high in that community as well, and it's really not talked about very much. So okay, so I did enough talking. Let's bring Lillian on, and let's have Lillian start with her fabulous coming up. So let's bring Lillian on. There she is.
Great morning.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning. You were right, spot on, Lori. It's increasing instead of decreasing. And I constantly say, every single day, whether it be People Magazine, The Guardian, The Daily Voice, all you read about is when people that have been killed due to domestic violence, leaving children orphans because sometimes, they'll take out their spouse and then kill themselves. And then they leave all these children without parents. So it's getting very, very bad. It is a national epidemic at this point.
Yeah.
Lillian, I have a question before we go to
Yes.
because Lori brought something up about men thinking it's embarrassing. So my question, with the research you've been doing, do you find that men become victims of domestic violence because they refuse to hit a woman? So
Yes.
the woman gets the higher hand?
Yes.
That's how they become victims.
Yes.
Not because the man is weak and pathetic and can't stand up for himself. I believe that it is because they refuse to hit the woman, and then the woman takes advantage because they know they can.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. Like Lori said, they'll call the cops and he can be the one abused, but all she has to say is he hit me.
Or she has to be the first one to call.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Good morning, Edie. Yes. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry. I just wanted to get out the way because I feel like the men are like rape victims. They're not supported in the judicial system right away. You're asked questions. What were you wearing? Why were you drinking? Why were you there at this time? And that's why a lot of rape goes unreported.
Absolutely. I, from experience, know, from going to the court system, they're not mentally work prepared for domestic violence cases. They just see black and white. They don't see anything above that. So they really don't know how to, when a man comes into the court system and the woman comes in, she comes in with her friends and plays the victim to the max. And the book gets thrown at the man, even though he was the victim. Okay. So that's why, and there's no shelters for men. So if they wanted to escape, they couldn't. Another thing is the man tends to feel responsible for the family. So as the woman does, but the man feels like they're financially responsible. So if they're abused, they're afraid to leave their children behind. I had someone on my program who had been stabbed twice. And I asked, why did you stay? He said, because of the kids. I didn't want to leave my kids, which is the same reason that women give.
Because it's a human reason.
Correct.
Not male, female. And that's where people get it mixed up, which listening to this story right now makes me want to open a shelter for abused men. Because, because it's true.
Mm-hmm.
As a mother of a son and 2 grandsons, like what's going to happen if we don't pull in the reins with this right now?
Yeah. When I started my platform, Ajusta Tu Corona, I started it for women. I wanted women to feel, to know that I had empathy for them because I was a prior victim of domestic violence. But the more that I have been involved with this, the more men are coming forward in my DM saying, this isn't just about women. This is men too. Men are abused too. And I have to acknowledge, yes, I understand. Then why don't you speak on it? Then why don't you say more about it? So sometimes I feel stuck between a rock and a hard place because I am defending women because I am a woman. Mm-hmm. And I can speak on it from my experience. So I say to them when I do my conversations with Ajusta Tu Corona, if you want to speak on it, come on to my show. And then they won't come on the show.
I get it. When I, I've always worked for women. And I started going to the prisons in Connecticut, the women prisons in 1998, teaching employabilities and life skills. So, and you meet a lot of women there. I met a lot of women in the Danbury Federal Prison who were there for killing their husbands who were very abusive towards them. Very to the point where they murdered them, but yet now they're serving 25 to whatever. in the federal prisons for the act that they sought help for.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, the women issue has always been my priority. When I started here at Viva, it was always, no, it's about the women and empowering the women, which is always going to be my number one priority. But we cannot forget that there are also men who go through this. So all this to say, thank you for opening the doors for the men in Ajusta Tu Corona, because that makes all the difference in the world when your battle is domestic violence.
Absolutely.
Beautiful.
So I would like to speak on the gala. I've held the gala in Connecticut for the past 4 years. This year is my 5th year, and I'm holding the gala in Florida. The gala will be held in Winter Park, Florida, which is right outside of Orlando. I consider it almost part of Orlando, but you can't tell them that. So the gala is to raise funds for domestic violence. This year we chose the organization Help Now of Osceola. And I have to tell you how frustrating it is to raise money for this cause. Though this is a national epidemic and it is continuously growing and getting out of control, getting worse with all of the homicides being committed by domestic violence, trying to get funds for this is close to impossible.
Mm-hmm.
To close a child for a day and give them, when women escape from domestic violence and go to a shelter, 99.9% of the time, they have not packed their bags.
They leave everything. Yep.
They leave with whatever's on their back.
Yep. They leave. And think about this for a minute. It's not just the clothes that they leave. They leave their memories. They leave they have to get the hell out of there. There's extraction teams that come in and get them out of there in a very brief period of time. They can't even try to pack before because it'll be obvious. So it's bad enough that these individuals, these children and women are running out with barely anything, but the emotional piece of it, and then to get somewhere and then have to be clothed, which probably isn't even their styles that they want to wear. It's temporary, but we have to be more empathetic to that piece of it. So like to be able to give more money to say, listen, I'm going to donate all this stuff. I'm going to donate clothes, donate money so that they can have these things, because at the very least, they have that piece of it, aside from what the heck they had to leave behind. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Lillian. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, you're correct. They leave with the clothes on their back. So if they escape and they go into the shelter, do you think their child wants to go to school the next day with the same clothes he wore the day before? No. $20 will give a child a new outfit and a backpack to go to school the next day. We're not asking for thousands of dollars. We're asking for everyone to put their little grain of sand into this jar so that we can fill it up to assist the women and their families who are running for their lives. And it's incomprehensible to me how we will pay $700 for a concert ticket, yet you cannot give $20 to save someone's life.
I agree. We pay money to send to other countries whenever something new comes up that somebody needs something, but there's nothing wrong with that. But we so neglect our own people, and especially when it's an ongoing problem. It's like, well, here, I'm going to donate because this is the thing in right now that's happening. And then we forget about that. Like we forget that this is something that is constant. This is something that is within the confines of our own country. Forget the domestic violence that happens in other countries because it's crazy. But focusing just on our people, we forget that. And we have to really be reminded enough to say, maybe this is something that I can imagine giving $20 a month. Like seriously, like 20, like what do you spend on? Like how much money do you spend on coffee like out per week. It's probably $20 per week, if that, right? It's probably more. But
Probably more.
$20 a month. Imagine you doing that $20 a month times 10 people doing that.
Absolutely. The link that's on the page right now is the link to our gala. So our gala, as I stated, is being held in Winter Park, Florida. It is on Saturday from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. It's a wonderful event. I can say the event is practically free. Why? You're going to get a gift bag worth $100. You're going to get food. You're going to get entertainment by actual singers who are on the charts. I mean, it is quite the event. And what we're asking for as a ticket is practically nothing. It's probably going out to dinner once, maybe twice. So we really would love to see you at the gala if you are in the Florida area. I actually have a few friends that are flying in from Connecticut, Delaware, to support because they see the value in this event. They see how important it is to assist these victims of domestic violence. It is open to men this year. It's the first time I've opened it to men. It's always been a woman's empowerment event, but it is now a domestic violence event. It is an empowerment event for all. So we welcome you. The theme is English Tea Party. So make pretend you're in London having tea with the Queen and wear your little fascinator hat on the side of your head. Or wear your big hat, big derby hat, if you want, Kentucky Derby hat that people wear. And just join us. Join us for this moving, inspirational event. It's going to fill your heart. Trust me, I have posted various videos. If you would like to go to Ajusta Tu Corona on Instagram or Facebook, you will see how I constantly post videos. Margarita, do you still have the video of...
Yeah, that's what I was looking for. I got your text and I've been looking under UNI, ATC, the board. I can't. Like there's some you can't open anymore. So I'm wondering if it's one of those.
Well, you had put it into StreamYard. So I don't know if you still had it on StreamYard. But if you go onto the Instagram page, and I created a video recently of victims of domestic violence and what they look like. They are you, they are me, they are senators, they're government, they're doctors, they're lawyers, they're newswomen.
They're your children. They're your children. They're your grandchildren. If it's not you, that's what you have to look at. It's just because you escaped it doesn't mean that they will. And that's really hardcore when you think of it that way.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So what are the steps we can do to help somebody?
Well,
ourselves, and then or to help somebody we know that's in dire need of that.
Well,
of assistance or guidance, better said.
It's very hard. I had a woman who was actually worked as a painter, and she was working on my home when I first moved here. And she said to me, I don't believe in that stuff because you can tell a woman to leave her man, but until she's ready, she's not going to leave it. Well, that is true. The person has to be ready to leave. But if you are a friend, if she has a tribe that is constantly spilling into her value, she will tend to leave much quicker than someone who has nobody.
Yes.
And that is so important. Do not give up on that person. Sometimes you get frustrated, you get fed up with constantly telling them, leave, and they don't. And then you turn your back on them, and that's when they lose their life. Because when they were probably ready to leave, they felt that they had no one in their life to turn to. So it is so important that you do not give up on them. Hug them, hold their hand, tell them how much you care. Tell them, knock on my door. If I'm here for you. When you're ready, I am here for you. Constantly pour into them. That is so important. That's one of the first things. The second thing is, you know, show them the symbol of domestic violence. If someone is in need of help, it is their palm open, thumb down, fist. Someone walks by you and you see them doing this symbol behind their back, near them, it tells you, I'm in trouble, help me, call 911.
Mm-hmm.
So those are all. And every year, the National Coalition for Domestic Violence comes up with a hashtag um, for the month of domestic violence. Last year, it was Be Resilient. This year, unfortunately, it is Everybody Knows Someone. So everybody knows someone who has been a victim of domestic violence. And if you don't, you know someone who knows someone. That's how serious it is right now. It is 1 in 4 women, 1 in 7 men, and growing. Those were the last published statistics, and it is getting worse daily. And with all the catastrophes and tragedies happening around the world, and the stress being added to us from all of these, outside, these things affect the human mind and build stress. And if they don't have a stress outlet, who's going to get it? The person at home.
Yes.
The hand signal, hand up, thumb in, fist closed. So if you see somebody going like this behind their back, or they walk by you and they go like this, they are in need of help, of assistance. It could be domestic violence, it could be trafficking. So those are very important to know.
Teach your kids.
Teach your children. Everyone knows someone.
Yes. Now, yeah, so that was a good one. Now, I wanted to touch base. Hello, Kimberly Sanchez. Welcome. Haven't seen you in a while. Iris says that men are embarrassed, and also she wrote someone else is embarrassed. I think grandparents, she wrote. Oh, parents and grandparents are embarrassed. But what is embarrassment? Like, that's your concern about others' opinions.
Absolutely.
And this is about saving someone's life and changing someone's lives, because if you assist a mom, then her children will feel safe enough to dream of becoming anything they want in this world, right? In this lifetime. So you're changing lives by saving a life. So I think the word embarrassment, I think I would associate that with pride. I would say, let's look for value in people. That's discernment. People are like, oh, you got too much pride. No, I have value in who I am, which makes all the difference in the world. So where somebody, just to get over it, will say that I'm prideful, they don't realize that my boundaries are where they are because I have value in how I handle my affairs. And so that is also like, my children always said I embarrassed them, but at the end of the day, they were always safe. So I think we also got to change the verbiage that we use, the words that we use to describe something. And it goes right back to what you were saying, Lillian. Support that person, whether you feel they're listening to you or not, because it's going to click in the least moment that they feel they're going to give everything up, because they can't. They're going to hear your voice resonating at the back of their thoughts that you are there for them. And that is holding value to yourself and dispersing embarrassment and shame about your situation, and valuing that you are a heartbeat, that you are somebody's mom, that you are somebody's daughter. And then someone comes in and says, I know you can't hear me right now, but I'm here. When you're ready, call me. I'm here. And that is the verbiage we need to. It's not about embarrassment, mi gente. It's about placing value on who you are and what you have to offer, and valuing the people you meet where they are
Correct.
that moment. Not
Can
where
I
you expect them to be.
Can I add to a little bit more onto that statement with that Iritza made about embarrassment? That here's the other part, that we as the people, we're not stupid and we're not blind. Like, and we choose to ignore when somebody's being abused a lot of times. Like we see it. You're talking about yourself, but let's go beyond that. Like if we're saying, like, let's say the grandparents are embarrassed because this is their son and they know the son is abusing the wife and they don't say anything. We have to stop with that bullshit. Like people have to take accountability. If my kid was abusive, I mean, because I'm a different person, I couldn't imagine them being abusive. But if I found out they were being abusive, I would say something to them. And then I would say something to the person they're abusing. I wouldn't take that crap if I were you. Like, I don't give a shit if it's my kid. That's not okay. And that's the other piece is a lot of times we see the behaviors. And even though we might not see the worst because they like to keep it behind closed doors, we still see stuff. And we ignore it. And we don't want to talk about it. We don't want to go up to that person and say, are you okay? Like, because that wasn't okay, the way that he or she behaved towards you. And I don't care if it's my niece, nephew, cousin, grandchild, child, whatever. And so that's the other piece is we have to step up and not be, I don't want to admit that my kid's abusive, or I don't want to admit my kid's being abused.
But what about admitting? Some people are just blinded by their child's behavior and then get upset when somebody checks them on their child's behavior.
True enough, right.
Not even that they're embarrassed, it's that they fail to see their child, because it's their child, for who they are. And I think that's where the grandparents will come in and be embarrassed about it, because they failed somewhere down the line. But I've met a lot of parents that believe their children has every right as the adult in the room. And no, you earn that by growing. So, but then I and they do what they see, and you got to check them. But domestic violence, how many this year do you have the statistics by how many this year? How has the number grown within 2022 from 2020?
I don't have the statistic for that, but I could tell you that it grew 54% during the pandemic.
That's fucking ridiculous.
Mm-hmm. Now, domestic violence, do they give you a report like how many people were unfortunately murdered in domestic violence?
It doesn't give me that report. There is a report that tells you how high domestic violence is in the States. And I believe Oklahoma was like number 1. And my state that I moved to a year ago is number 5, South Carolina.
In murder.
So say that again.
Not in murders, in the amount of reports of domestic violence.
So who was number 1?
I believe it was Oklahoma at the time.
And you're number 5 in South Carolina. Yes. Oh my God. Yeah. Do you find that socioeconomic levels play a huge role in domestic violence?
I totally believe that. I don't know if it's on lack of education or if it's population wise. I know that there is a huge Latino community in this area, and there's a huge one in Florida, and they tend to be higher in numbers. And not to specifically point them out, but it's your point of socioeconomic. But really, it's across the board.
Yes.
Like when you come to the gala, our panelists are master's degree, PhD, data engineers. Like I said, it doesn't matter your education. It doesn't matter who you are. Domestic violence does not have a face. It's everyone.
Well, and sometimes the numbers lie, and I'm going to bring up a point, no matter how uncomfortable it is, because I was doing some research before we came on. Just like I said, this weekend I was away. So, remember when HIV and AIDS first came out? The highest population were the women, the housewives on Long Island, that their husbands were executives in Manhattan. But they covered that up and made it all about the low income gay population, that they were the ones with the highest numbers.
Wow.
Okay. So the the little gays, that they, as they refer to them, the gay men, low income in the boroughs, they were the ones being blamed for this epidemic, when all the while it was the housewives in Long Island, where their husbands were CEOs and corporate, people working in Manhattan, going to meet these boys. So, I mean, statistics will cover up the population they need to cover up.
Correct.
But that's why I love when these things go on, because we are viewing people at all the same level. It doesn't matter how big your bank account is. It doesn't matter what's your educational background. What matters is that you are going through something, you feel trapped and lost, and you want to give up. And we are here to say, no, that is not the plan. This is what we can do. This is where I'm going to be. So when you're ready, you just got to reach out to me. And then we're going to work this out. We're going to meet people. We're going to find a solution. And I think that's the beauty of what's going on today, because that HIV, AIDS, Reaganomics era, I think that should have taught us so fucking much about doing your own homework, about not believing in so much social status as what HIV doesn't have a particular nationality, race, or area in this earth to attack. And I think that it's the same way. And unfortunately, with the machismo within our Latino community, it does happen a lot. So we can't take away from it. But what we're saying is that, don't look at somebody and think that because they come from this area and they're, and they're blue-eyed, blonde hair, whatever, that they could never possibly understand what Maria de Pilar is doing over here or going through over here, because it can. It's actually the same balance, it's just in different areas. So I think awareness has to be through that bullhorn.
Absolutely. And what you're saying is true. I actually had a woman whose husband was a police officer, and he said in some of the most prestigious areas in Connecticut, the number one crime was domestic violence.
Yes. And you don't hear about it.
No, you don't hear about it. And they keep it quiet and they stay because they love that title. They love the money that the CEO is bringing in.
Yes.
We murder on passion. If you want to break it down socially and statistically, when it's a domestic violence case and there's no spotlight on any of it, but we do it spur of the moment. You're not leaving me. I love you. I can't live without you. Boom. Either you're dead, I'm dead, we're both dead. And then you have the prestigious neighborhoods where it's all premeditated for money. So it's like they differ social status wise, but it's still the same. People are getting hurt. So why are we covering up one and brandishing the spotlight on another to say, you see, look at what this culture brings us down?
Well,
but it should be women protected across the board with no matter what bank you do business with.
And again, you had said it before about doing the research. If you go back in time, right? So we talked about why the laws in Connecticut changed because of that woman. They were middle-class white people. And so that she changed the law because of horrendous, right. Yes. And then if you remember years ago, this was probably back in maybe late 80s. I'm not exactly, there was a very wealthy family. He was an attorney, and they had adopted a girl, and the girl ended up dying. And what happened was he killed him. He was physically, mentally, emotionally abusive to the whole household. And when the wife showed up for court on his behalf, her face was so beat up. He was a coke addict. He was like completely out of control, very violent temper. And that's when it brought to light the fact that, you know, you could have status and money and still be like a physical, like this guy would show up to work as an attorney and nothing, like as if nothing was wrong. And then he would go home and torment his wife
What was
and
his
child.
nationality?
He was white.
Of course. So
He was white. So what I'm saying is that, but what was shocking was when he showed up to court and his wife was standing behind in the seats, and her face was like, you could see it was years of abuse. Like
Yes.
she showed up with like disfigurement, and people were shocked, like, holy crap, how come this wasn't noticed? How come this wasn't talked about? And for her, it wasn't, you know, what they do is they manipulate you to believe too that you can't live without them. Sometimes it's the status and the style, the lifestyle you don't want to give up. But the truth be told is, you know, there are times when it's just, they have no idea how they're going to survive by themselves. Like all the money is controlled by the abuser. All the, everything is controlled by the abuser. And if they're not abusing the children, just the wife, then they'll say things like, well, you'll never get your kids. Like, if you leave me, say goodbye to the kids, because they have all the money. And then they'll have this paper trail showing that they were the perfect dad. And it goes both ways. It could be the same thing with a wife and a husband, but they will threaten them to say, you're not going to go anywhere. If you go somewhere, then I'm going to show what an awful parent you were. And I'm going to hire all the best lawyers, and you can't afford any of that. And that's very scary for a lot of parents, because they don't want to leave their children. They want, and they'll know that the children are not necessarily safe in those households, even if the abuser never specifically targeted the children. But you never know. They could.
And Lillian, I have a question. Have you, with all of your in-depth studies on this, because this is what you're going to be doing, what you're going to be offering, have you discovered or became acquainted with those safe houses that will, you know, because there's a lot of people who have reported it, but because of the status do not get the help, or because of the police, whatever the police department they're at, haven't been properly trained, because a lot of them still haven't in domestic violence.
Correct.
How to view it and how to like determine whether someone is unsafe and needs to be removed. But there are also when I used to do in the safe houses and in the rape centers, they are many in Connecticut that I know of. But I mean, I don't know how difficult it would be, but right when the situations that the badass Buddha was just talking about, a lot of the women also stay because they feel their lifestyle is going to change so that they can deal with it and continue to live in that lifestyle, because there has been some of that, which is still a form of abuse and what am I?
Brainwashing.
Yes. So in your research, have you discovered any of those areas? Because I know they're safely hidden because they're safe houses.
I can speak on my behalf and where I'm located. When I first arrived here, I looked for a safe house or a shelter to go volunteer at, and there was nothing here.
And they're number 5.
And they're number 5.
Oh, madam.
Now, is it because they're so protected? Maybe that you didn't find
there's nothing. Like, I literally went looking for domestic violence, safe houses, shelters, what to do if you're a victim of. And there is a thrift store that is trying to open a shelter. They're a nonprofit, and they are a thrift store, and they hold meetings for victims of domestic violence in the back of a little church. So I guess the victims are saying that they're going to church to get, but they can't live there. I don't understand, like, what are you going there for? Like, you're going to the church and they're speaking to you. Maybe they're pouring into you, like you want to be poured into. And then they have to go back home to the abuser because there is nowhere for them to go. And because it is a national epidemic, every shelter is filled to capacity. There is not enough shelters for all of the victims. Like, you can't.
They also have very strict rules too.
Correct.
So some of them do not allow pets. Some of them, I knew a woman who actually left with her, let me see. She didn't leave. She didn't have children. She left. And what happened was, I don't know, something about she was supposed to meet up with her abuser's family member somewhere. And she let them know, like, she didn't say where the shelter was, but she let them know, like, the vicinity to meet up with them. And the shelter found out that she gave an address close to it, and they kicked her out. And I get why they did it, and she understood that too. But in that moment, like, these are the other things you have to consider. It's like, when you go, you have to know that it's nobody can know where you are. You cannot get, and it's very hard. So Gail wrote something about the Stockholm syndrome. You know, you as the abuser also have to, I mean, the abused also have to understand that, because they have this bond. It's the trauma bond that they have with the individual. And so they cannot be in contact with anybody, the abuser, or anybody that's friends with the abuser or related to the abuser, because if they let that information out, they get booted out of these places, and then they really are screwed. And so there's, like, I think this massive education that we need to do across the board, more so, is educating the abused, educating the family and friends of people who could potentially be being abused, and then just always have that out there. But I love the fact that you did your research as far as the shelters go, because maybe that's what the reason you're there. Maybe that's the reason you're in that state.
You know, I was going to say that. Put out of my head. I was going to say that out of how it was like, I'm going to move to Orlando, but I'm looking for houses. And then, like, oh, I found a house. And I believe there's no accident in Muck-Tub. It's been written. But, you know, going back to she got thrown out, because I'm totally in agreement with that. If you cannot follow the rules, it doesn't matter. You're here because
it's safety. It's safety.
That you can't make decisions on your own because you're not totally healed. So abide by these rules to keep everybody safe. And you know what? Why would you give your abuser's family? It doesn't matter. And I think that tough love is true love, and it is for your safety and security,
and for the others, the other people.
Yeah, and people want to become a double victim. I can't believe they knew my situation. No,
that's right.
You knew the situation, and you did not think past your nose that you're putting everybody in danger, because men gather at bars or whatever. There's men, you know, looming around. What are you looking for? Oh my. It's horrendous. It strikes a lot of anger in the people looking for you. So when that happens, I would be the one to say, no, you knew the rules. You gave the address, even though it was 3-4 houses down the way. It's still in the same perimeter. You please here's your stuff. You need to go. I would be right there with him with a broken heart, but it's a bigger picture. And if you are really seeking help, guess what? Next time she seeks help, she's going to follow all the rules, I rest assured.
Well, and I think they need to understand, they need to be told, though, what a trauma bond is, because the trauma bond is so strong that they still justify their behavior by saying, no, I didn't do anything wrong, because they are so bonded to the person. So they have to be told that. So I think it's, like I said, it's about educating the women and men about the abuse. It's about, like, saying, this is what's going on with you. I have seen people in acute trauma bonds where they are justifying the behavior all over the place. You cannot even reason with them. Like, they can't hear anything that you're saying. And when they're in those, they're in a very crucial state, because they can easily screw themselves over by opening up the door to the abuser, you know, because they believe the lies and all that bullshit that they're always told. So
they want to believe it, Lord.
Because yes, of course. That's what I'm saying. That's what trauma bond is.
In your research, and thank you for bringing that up, because Lillian brought that up a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about a warehouse with tools. And, you know, you hear trauma, right? And you hear bonding with yourself, and so in different formats and different platforms. So to hear them together, it's like, it's painful. To me, that hurts every time I hear somebody say that. Like Lillian was talking about it, and then you just came out and said it, and you said it in a very relaxed tone, but it still hurt me. Because that word needs to be said a lot. Like Louis Vuitton and Bad Bunny, that word needs to be out there, like,
Trauma bond.
because people need to say, wait, what's that? And half the people that are going to be drawn to that word is never going to have imagined that they are suffering through it right now. So that's something, badass. You're right on it. You're right on it, because I was thinking about it and I couldn't come up with it. And then you said, and then Lillian said it, like you were right there. So yeah,
there's 3 steps to domestic violence. The first one is walking on eggshells because you're waiting for the next episode of abuse.
Yep.
Then you're in the abuse. And then it's the honeymoon stage, which is the trauma bond. Because you're not with someone who abuses you. You're with someone that you chose to love and you fell in love with, and then they started abusing you. So the honeymoon phase after they beat you is them apologizing, saying they'll never do it again. And because you love them, you hang on to them. So that is the trauma bond.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the anxiety waiting for the abuse to happen. Then the actual abuse happens. And then it's the honeymoon phase, the trauma bond stage. So this is a constant vicious circle that happens every single time. So when they start apologizing to you and telling you they love you and they'll never do it again, this is the stage that sets off those hormones that makes you feel loved, and you tend to forgive them right away. You turn into butter because they didn't mean to do it. They love you and you love them. And it is a vicious cycle. So this is why having a tribe, having people around you that can pour into you, that will, until you understand that love does not hurt, so that you can take the next step to walk away, run for your life. Because all of these women that we read about in the newspapers, in the news, every single day, did not think that they were going to end up dead. They were with someone that they loved. And don't ever say, he would never do that to me.
That is a great closing, because you know what? That is exactly right, Lillian. You know, you have become such a knowledgeable person on this. So you've taken this so serious that you're learning it all over. In 2020 in Spain, because you know that's where my heart is, there was 18 murders of domestic violence of ex-boyfriend. That's how they started the article. The ex, and then their current partner. And now in 2022, there have been 5. And they're trying to eliminate all of it. So they've done this big campaign where they're training all of the Guardia Civiles and the police. So there's 2 different police. There's the Guardia Civiles that normally would be on the camino with people. They're like, I don't even know how to call them, but they all carry weapons. So they're training all of them across the board through Spain, learning about domestic violence, how to distinguish between who's saying what. And I guess they're even teaching them body language because of the lies. Well, he hit me, no, she hit me first, that type of thing. And to really look at body language, which I think is something that is phenomenal. And I think we need to learn that within ourselves, because we're going to be the ones going around teaching this, speaking out on it, going into places where we're going to be booed by the women who just can't understand or comprehend, or the women abusers, and then the men. As a teacher, a facilitator, for adult women, I got a lot of threatening letters from men. And we're talking 99, 2000. Men used to come and poke at me through the door while their wives were in my class. And I would get letters saying how I am brainwashing their wives because I was making them aware. And I'm talking 99, 2000. And I loved it. I loved when I got that, because you know what that taught me? That I was making a difference, because that woman was going home and taking charge of her life. And she knew. And before we taught the class, we gave them all the hotline numbers. And I'm talking, this was when Clinton came and did the welfare reform. So there was a lot of things in place. And then it was deleted afterwards. But those systems are there. Maybe we need to wake them up. Wake up that sleeping giant. And let's head out with trauma bonding. Let's teach everybody what a trauma bond is. Because what is the largest statistics that nobody talks about either, Lil? 18 to 21, those high school kids are being domestically abused.
Your daughters dating in high school are being abused by their boyfriends that they're dating.
They're not telling you because they want to stay popular. They want to stay relevant. And because they're afraid. So they're not telling you. But that is a big, big thing. So if you have high school kids, look into it, because even the boys are being abused domestically. You know, look into it. Don't let them know, because they're not going to, if they haven't told you yet, you have to gather the facts, and then you have to try and assist. And if you're one, help is out there. That's the bottom line. If you were in your closing line, Lillian, what would you tell somebody who doesn't know? Like, should I go or should I stay? You know, what would you tell them?
Go and get a little bit of information and then make your decision.
Make it happen. What's your last wise words before we close out?
Never forget how amazing you are. Never forget how much you are loved. Never forget how exceptional you are. You are valued.
Amen. And from my favorite movie, everything she said, you is important, you is smart, you is kind. Remember, you are everything in the world to you. So make yourself count so that you can then go out there and make the world a better place. And from the Gladiator Guru, mi gente, remember to breathe in the beauty, breathe out the bullshit. Namaste.
Bye.